Twitch, come on.
Twitch is just weird.
It's just building the anticipation because it knows it's a celebratory
of
Heroes Never Die. Pink and blue, yeah, pink and blue.
Pink and blue.
we are actually, in fact, live at this point, and so hello everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight on episode 150, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics. We'll reflect back on the past week of the Overwatch League. And guys, there are even more changes that have hit the PTR a couple of times since we sat down and recorded episode 149 this past week. Some of them might even be bigger changes than what we already talked about, which is crazy because they're not, they already kind of touched half of the hero pool at this point. But wait, there is more. But before we can do that and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us live tonight on Twitch for our live show. And of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Adenar and Ed. Now tonight we're celebrating a few different things. We have a milestone in celebrating our 150th episode overall as a podcast. This is like our 50th overall together on this show specifically, not including like any of the one-offs or BlizzCon specials that we have had that kind of change up the weekly release schedule for us. But there is a lot to be thankful for, including the potential death of a certain composition that we'll be getting into in our main discussion. But before we can jump into that, how has this past week been treating you?
It's been really good. It's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed a lot of the all the changes that have come out because there's been a whole slew of them, and then also all of the action in the Overwatch League, all the fantasy stuff, Destiny stuff. That because I'm still a Destiny nerd, me and Spider are. So it's been a great gaming week. I've had a lot of fun. Can't complain. And it's like a monumentous episode for us. So, I mean, more so for you than me. Because you've only done like 100 episodes extra than me. Only 100. I'm just on this show.
Right. That's not including literally everything else.
I would say you're probably close to 400 total, including ones you guessed it on.
I don't know if it's that high. It might be closer to 300.
Okay. Well, either way, you've been on a lot. So, yeah, it's been a great week. How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. It's been pretty hectic with kind of the start of Overwatch Contenders. Go figure, Ed. We have Contenders kicking off across the globe, and I'm like, I don't have the time to watch this. But thankfully, we will have a way for people to get up to date with Contenders news, which I'll talk about near the end of the show. So I'll be looking forward to that so I can at least keep a close eye on what is going on there. But it's been a pretty good week. We had some pretty big shakeups in Overwatch League again. We got some new additions for a certain team that I've been riding the solar coaster with. We had a very interesting dad joke for the Dad Joke Dojo after that news dropped in the staff lounge. Because, Slambo just had to make his presence felt at some point because he was not on OWLN this week. So, he had to make his stamp while he can in some form or another. But all in all, it's been a very good week. And I'm looking forward to just jumping into it tonight because we actually have a lot to cover. A lot of this is PTR changes. It's been kind of a quieter week in regards to actual Overwatch. But we do have some exciting things that we're going to be talking about tonight. So let's go ahead and jump into the news. So first up, we got to talk about Hero 30. Baptiste has seen a lot of cosmetics because all of his cosmetics did hit the PTR with today's update, which we'll do a little bit deeper dive into later on in our main discussion. But we did get our first teases at the legendary skins that Baptiste is getting. And the first one that we got to see is the Buccaneer Baptiste skin that was unveiled on Twitter before it appeared on the PTR earlier today. And here he basically trades in his robotic arm for a wooden cannon and a pirate sword. He's also dressed in like a red captain's jacket that has blue and white striped pants. And, you know, you got to complete it with, you know, a red bandana. He's got the eye patch because, you know, you wouldn't be a pirate without one. So that's kind of like in place of where his scanner is, like with his eye. So not only do we have that, but they also showed off the Special Ops legendary skin, which is interesting. It's like a high-tech military type gear, and I know one of the variants to that one, I think it was the Desert Ops is what they call that one. The color scheme is actually very close to the coloring for Genji's primary skin in the game, which I thought was a pretty nice touch. But, you know, we got to look at all of the sprays, all of the voice lines, all the skins, highlight intros, emotes, you name it. And I have to say, like, I wasn't, like, blown away by any of the emotes or victory poses or anything like that, but I did definitely appreciate the Terminator nod that he has for one of his voice lines, which is a survival tip one. So that's definitely one I'm going to be sporting for Baptiste.
Muted. Yeah, no, I liked it. The skins are fine. Honestly, the one that stuck out to me was an emote that he did. And the emote was if you've ever seen the new Mission Impossible movie, Henry Cavill like cocks his arms for a fight.
Yeah, when he's like reloading.
Like he's reloading his guns. And Baptiste has that emote. So I'm like, oh, yeah.
I remember seeing that trailer, and I just shook my head whenever I saw that scene. I was like, what is he doing?
But it's awesome. It was an awesome, like, scene. Like, you're just like, okay. He just cocked his, yep, he totally just cocked his guns. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. But yeah, no, Baptiste has that as an emote. It was fine. I didn't like any of the skins. I mean, the pirate one's okay. I don't like the Special Ops one. The other ones are just weird color variations and not really that impressive. So, you know, this is definitely one, if I do end up playing him more, he'll get the Overwatch League skin. So, like, he'll get that treatment. Because certain heroes I love some of their skins. Like, Junkrat has a couple skins that I love that I'm always going to have no matter what. Roadhog will always be Rudolph. Like, but there are certain characters where I'm like, I just don't like your skins. I'm going to get an Overwatch League skin for you and call it a day. And then, you know, I'm happy. So if I do keep playing him, he's going to get the pink and blue.
I can't understand why.
I don't get it either. It's not like we're fans of them.
No.
At all.
No. We didn't buy their merchandise.
No, we totally didn't.
Or dye our hair.
Now, yeah, but you dyed your hair for the Vancouver Titans, just the wrong color.
Well, no, see, I did it for Runaway, who just so happened to turn into the Vancouver Titans. I was still going to support Runaway, regardless of the Overwatch League level or the Contenders level, which, by the way, Runaway did make their debut in Contenders Korea with a 4-0. Just a quick side note.
I mean, good for them. They're Runaway 3.0. Is it 3.0?
I think they added like one player during the offseason, so technically.
Okay, so yeah, 3.0. 3.0, let's go with it. Soon to be the Mystery Chicago team. Like, what will that happen? Like, if Runaway 3.0 comes to Chicago, you're just going to be divided.
You know, Ed, you reminded me of something that's Chicago related that I have to bring up. Now, this is something that I saw on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this, but there's been a lot of back and forth between some of the Path to Pro graphic designers, specifically for Atlanta Academy. Now, basically, someone stole one of the previous banner designs that they were using on Twitter. That their previous designer did. And the new designer basically came in, ripped off the design, and instead of using the Atlanta skyline, used the Chicago skyline for the Twitter banner. And man, I couldn't help but laugh. It's just like,
I mean, they chose the better skyline.
They did, but like I was just like, you know what? That is just further proof that Sugar Free is gonna come to Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever he does turn 18, 20 years from now.
Yeah, it's proof. I mean, it's a guarantee. I mean, lock it. I mean, Vegas wouldn't even put odds on it because it's such a lock. So, yeah, Chicago team, 2025? 2025 or 2024 is when he can play. Whatever. He can stream now.
This is true. Well, yeah, I mean, he's of age at this point. But anyways, so we've had like a number of PTR updates since our last episode. We actually had like a PTR update mid-show last week that we didn't even get to, which was one of the bigger ones. But we did see a new patch that dropped on March 1st that did bring a couple of changes to Baptiste and Symmetra. So first up, we had kind of a visual update for Baptiste and his amplification matrix, where before it was just looking too much like a shield, so the changes made it look more as a field rather than a shield. And then Symmetra, they took a look at her photon projector, which is her primary fire, so they made her damage ramp up 20% faster. So I have to say, like, the Baptiste thing, when it first came out, I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna stay, because it just looked like a square. And if the Pro Pugs taught us anything this past week, is that that's just what the pros are going to be calling the ultimate, is just square. But it did look way too much like a shield, but it's not in fact a shield. So this is not the first time we've seen like visual updates. I know, they did like updates for Maze Blizzard to make it more of a dome, so you can kind of see like if it was going to affect you on like a higher ground or lower ground, as opposed to you just not knowing because it would like cut off on like a stairway. So that's a very good change. And, the Symmetra one has been kind of interesting because we've seen teams try to incorporate Symmetra as like a Reinhardt breaker in these 3-3 compositions. And while, yes, you do ramp up quite quickly, even without this change, you don't necessarily have the finishing power in regards to getting the eliminations, but, the utility of her ultimate to kind of split the Transcendence healing is good, but I still don't think that this is going to be enough to be a, quote, shield breaker for Symmetra specifically.
No, what I took from this is the majority of people who play Symmetra just right-click. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the proper way. I think they want to get away from characters only using right-clicks for their, damage output. So this is more of a thing to kind of make her primary fire, her left-click, more effective. And eventually the thing is I think Siegel put it best on his stream. He's just like, Symmetra is just not good right now because of the meta, but if you keep buffing her like they're doing, when 3-3's gone, Symmetra will be insane. And that is kind of what you got. I think the closest thing was, remember Anna when she first came out?
Right.
Nobody was playing Anna, and everyone was just complaining about her, so they buffed her. Next thing you know, she's unstoppable, and she's a god. And then they're like, well, we over-buffed her because nobody was playing her and all this stuff, and then you guys figured her out. Well, Symmetra just needs to be figured out, and once she's figured out, she's going to get nerfed. But it's got to get to that point with the changes, which again we'll talk about in a little bit on why we might see the rise of Symmetra quicker and quicker coming up. So yeah, I like these changes. In the Baptiste ones, it's just it's a purely graphic thing that will make it easier for people, like you said, that they did with Maze Ult. So overall, pretty good.
All right, so in regards to like general Overwatch news, it's been pretty light, but we do have some very interesting topics to talk about in regards to the hot community topics. So first up, this is going to be something that we've talked about in the past that we're going to revisit because we do have kind of an update or confirmation, so to speak, based on something our dev and savior, Papa Jeffy Cap, praise him, had to say. So, what are we talking about? Let's talk about role queue, guys. So, lately, all signs are pointing to the development team looking into adding a role queue, thanks to a recent interview that featured Jeff Kaplan. So, basically, a role queue is going to guarantee that players are going to be able to play the role of their choice in the game and ensure that each team will have a viable balance of roles. So, you're not going to run into a situation on ladder where, hey, you have 5 DPS mains because there's nothing to stop everyone from just instant locking DPS. And then, you also won't kind of roll your eyes in situations where you just have 4 support mains. And then they don't quite know what to do on some of the other roles, which can tend to happen. But we're still trying to figure out whether or not that a role queue is going to enforce a 2-2-2 split. That seems very likely with that. But having that is definitely going to help ensure future balancing of the game, make things a little bit more easier to tweak and adjust. And Kaplan initially mentioned back in January that the team liked the idea of a role queue, but it wasn't until a recent interview with Stylosa that Kaplan went into more details about it. And Kaplan noted that if he wanted to pursue something like a role queue, it is months and months of rewriting on the matchmaking system, and I know this from doing heavy research on it. I'm not just speculating. We actually have people doing work on this now. Okay, Ed, so very recently with the slew of PTR changes that we saw, there was a time frame where we had quick play and competitive mode disabled. And Kaplan had noted that this was due to changes being made to the matchmaking system in the game. And pretty much, I mean, that's as close to being confirmed. You know, those two aren't coincidental by any stretch of the imagination. And I have to say, like, you kind of look back at different, like, role queues in other games, and, Kaplan noted, like, we're guaranteed if you're a DPS player, you're going to be seeing longer queue times, which is not that much of a surprise. Everyone wants to be DPS in. So he noted, like, the queue times he mentioned, like 13 to 16 minutes, which I even thought was kind of on the low end for a DPS queue. But I'm assuming, drawing comparisons to Warcraft, more than likely, if you're a tank player, you would be seeing an instant queue or something less than a minute. For a support player, it's probably going to be a minute, maybe a minute and a half on the high end. And then, of course, the DPS will get the lower or the shorter stick in this regard, just because there is such an influx of DPS players out there. But, we talk about issues with matchmaking, with the current state of competitive, and a lot of the community out there has been wanting role queue for a very long time. And for a lot of people, this is really kind of like that first step towards making improvements to that aspect of the game, to having more balanced games, or just making sure that you're not forced to kind of play these off-kilter roles that you just don't practice, that would kind of put yourself at a disadvantage going into a game on the ladder. So to you, how important do you feel adding a role queue is in regards to the stability of the game and potentially bringing back some of the player base that we've seemingly lost here in the last couple of months?
Oh, I think it's vital. I think it's mandatory. And like one thing we talked about this, and now this was an interview, like you said, with Stylosa, but did you see he actually went a little further today on the forums?
Oh, did he?
Okay. Yeah, and it wasn't like he didn't go in depth. He was replying to a role queue compromise. So he actually came back and he said, if we do a role queue, we would do separate SRs. So this is one of the things I think that would be really fun, plus make the game way more balanced and improve matchmaking. So that's another thing a lot of people were talking about is, well, yeah, you can have role queue, but if you just want to play a quick comp match and you're a DPS main, well, you're just going to queue tank and go in with the same SR as your DPS. Well, that's not going to be the case. Now you're going to queue as a tank, and it's going to take your tank SR, and go from there. Now the question is,
as opposed to just tanking your normal SR.
Yeah, but now here's the thing. I mean, and this is, not a minor thing, but do you have to do 30 placement matches? Like 10 is tank, 10 is healer, 10 is damage to get an actual SR? Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where that has to be fine-tuned, but I think it's the right way to go. Because, the comp scene or the ladder is so brutally broken right now. People just don't want to play it. Like, they just don't. And they need to do something, and this will go a long way. Now, regarding the long lines for DPS, that can be adjusted if it gets out of hand. And like you talked about, like World of Warcraft, it, at a certain point in Cataclysm, it was a 45 to 50 minute wait for a dungeon as a DPS character in Cataclysm. Well, what did they do to alleviate that? Well, you can't force people to tank and heal, but you can give them incentives. Why not give loot boxes? Or give credit towards the loot box? Or, hey, here's, for every comp match you do queued as a tank or healer, you get Overwatch League token. Like, you get one token for doing that. And give some incentive for people to play tank and healer, and that will bring down the queue for DPS because there will just be more. If they don't do something, which all the chatter coming from Overwatch and everything like that, all signs point to, yes, they're going to be making some changes. And I think the role queue 222 is what they are going to settle on. They're just fine-tuning how to do all of it. And I think they wanted to do this a long time ago, but they couldn't. Because as much as people want to say, oh, they just have to change this or just have to do that, it's not that easy. Like, you don't know how much the matchmaking or the SR is built into the baseline code of the game that has been added to and added to and added to and added to. Like, again, and this is going to sound like a broken record, it can go back to World of Warcraft. Like, one of the biggest things people have been asking for forever is a bigger base bag that you start with. And finally, Blizzard had to come out and be like, listen, this is going to take a crazy amount of time to change because we have to go back and change code from vanilla, and it's now 6 expansions in. Every code is getting written over. Like, it's a massive undertaking. So I think they're finally getting close to announcing what they're doing because they're getting close on the coding side of it. So I'm very much in play of this because, it's what people want. And like, as good as Overwatch League has been doing, Overwatch the game has been struggling. So like, it's just one of those things where it's got to change.
Yeah, and there's definitely been games that have come out lately that have made like huge waves in regards to just the FPS scene. Because Apex just very recently hit 50 million users, which is absolutely crushing it. And we have seen even some Overwatch pros transition over to being Apex pros, even on some esports organizations that they had played on with Overwatch, which I thought was pretty cool. But I cannot wait. I feel like this has been like one of the major themes, that's kind of been like the secret project, that they kept repeating over and over again. It's taken time, and I would not be surprised if this is going to be coming out in time for the summer. Like, if you're looking at a time frame window, the summer would absolutely make the most sense.
100%. It's not coming out with, the next patch when Baptiste is Like, this is something they're going to actually test on the PTR and test how it works and stuff like that. Like, I'm not talking like test it like they test heroes on the PTR, because we all know they don't truly do that. Considering we just got our like first ever update to heroes that were changed on the PTR.
While it was still the PTR cycle.
While it was still in the PTR cycle.
And not months later after the fact. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like it only took a few years to get a PTR change on the PTR. Like they're gonna put it on the PTR. They're really gonna test it. So yeah, summer is probably where it's gonna be, but maybe sooner. But like I'm talking May. Probably May would be my guess.
Look forward to it. Well, we do have another hot community topic, which is more esports specific, specifically when it comes to the Overwatch League, because there was a certain play that we got to see in one of the more anticipated matches this past week between the Atlanta Reign and the Paris Eternal, which was a rooftop Graviton Surge from Defran on Gerard or on Hollywood. So, you know, this was pretty interesting. I know going in, we felt like, you know, Atlanta, Paris are going to be pretty even. You know, you have someone that doesn't necessarily play completely to the meta, and then you also have a team coming out of the EU region who are known for playing tank-heavy compositions that had a good look in 3-3. And this match by no means ended the way that any of us had predicted. And Atlanta definitely earned some style points with a lot of people with this play. So basically what happened is after capturing the first objective on Hollywood, you had Masa, who is the Atlanta Reign Lucio player, and a friend who has been playing the Zarya. They took the Raisin platform, and then the two headed to the top. You saw Masa speed boost the Fran. The Fran jumped. He used his alternate fire twice on the rooftop, which propelled him. You know, you can get like a little bit of a jump whenever you right click and hit the ground. And then he launched himself over the rooftop, landed the Graviton Surge, and Paris Eternal had no answer. I mean, we've seen a lot of Graviton Surges being eaten in the Overwatch League so far this season. There was no way that was going to happen. And I already know some people have been kind of adding that to their repertoire when it comes to playing on the competitive ladder. But what really made this play stand out wasn't just the fact that we're not always getting to see this sort of like innovative tech in Overwatch after all this time. It was the fact that the production team, the people that were doing the broadcast, actually had the right point of view for it. So they didn't have to like go back to see what the Fran did. They staged it perfectly for the stream, which is not something that we always get to see. And I know, you know, some of the esports observers tend to get a lot of flack for certain things or missing plays, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park, setting this one up.
Yeah, they got it right with the camera frame and all that stuff that, you know, they did. They had the right perspective. Yes, it was a cool play. Meh. I mean, it was a cool play, and it will never be done again. Because here's the thing. That is like, if it's like running at somebody with a knife and then them not doing anything as you stab them. You do it once, they're gonna expect it again. Like, that Graviton could have been eaten easier than any grav that has been eaten in the Overwatch League. Like, you have a Zarya falling at you, trying to shoot a Graviton bomb at you. So you're just like, all right, he's on the roof. I wonder what he's going to do next. Okay, I'll put up my, you know, defense matrix and eat the grav bomb. Like, it's just not going to happen again. It was cool to see it. It was fun. It was cheeky. We see this from time to time, from the Great Bamboozle to, I forgot who it was in season 1 with the Tracer. It might have even been in Contenders, but like the Tracer that was tucked in the bush on Hanamura.
Yeah, I know it was one of the Korean teams.
Yeah, and like everyone ran past him. And like you just see this fun, cheeky stuff. But then, you know, after that, you can pull it off once, you can't pull it off twice. So, it's cheeky, it's fun. If it would have gone badly, people would have been like, right, whatever. Whatever. It's just Dufran doing Dufran things. But, good for them. It made it onto ESPN,
Oh, did it? Was it like a top play?
No, it wasn't part of the top plays. That would have been. You would have heard the chaos from, everyone on the internet.
What I do want to note though is the fact that Atlanta made mention that, hey, we saw this on Reddit, and then they used it in the Overwatch League. So I mean that was interesting. I mean, normally you don't see like the community aspect of it getting pulled into the proceeds. So it just comes to show that it's not necessarily always one-sided in that regard.
I mean, God help us if more Overwatch League teams start taking plays from Reddit. Like,
someone's going to come out with a 6 support comp.
Like, they're going to be like, we can't die. We have 6 supports. They're screwed. Like, or we're going to see, what are some of the other crazy Reddit things we've seen? Oh, everything having to do with Symmetra's portal. Mm-hmm. So, we could definitely see that. I'm waiting for the cheeky Symmetra portal, Reinhardt charge through the portal, pinning someone.
Or the self-destructs. Mm-hmm. Trying to get the right angle, which is a pain in the butt.
Or here's something that Atlanta needs to do. Get Dufran on Torbjorn, get a Symmetra out there, get his turret set up right in front of the portal, and then,
Which also would be on Hollywood, and you could put it on the high ground, on the bridge.
See? You know what? There you go, Dufran. There's another Reddit play that you can do.
Yeah, you're welcome. Someone clip that, and we'll add it to him.
We'll be like, Dufran, try this next time. But it has to be against a team that they're going to 4-0. So it's like,
so you can ensure it will work.
Houston. Who do they play? Houston
or the LA Valiant.
I don't know.
The win zeros.
I don't know. I'd still probably rather. I would guess a 4-0 versus a Houston over Valiant. That's just me being critical of Houston again, over and over.
I mean, the Valiants are kind of ranked 19th in our power rankings. Spoilers. Definitely go check out our new power rankings video, guys. Yep. For stage 1, week 4, because it is up as of today at like 12 p.m.
Yep, and then the sauce, the throwdown I had at the end. Yes. I don't know if you heard what Slambo put.
Oh, I did.
Okay, good. For all you listeners, spoiler, I call out the New York Excelsior. Just say it.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens when they go up against Titans, because it's destined to happen in the playoffs, and I cannot wait, because I cannot imagine just waiting until like the actual like normal schedule, like during the stage, and just not the stage playoffs. It has to happen before then. But anyways, speaking of the Overwatch League, let's go ahead and transition into our Path to Pro and Overwatch League discussion. And there's a lot going on. So we do have an update in regards to viewership numbers. This is taking a look back at how we did during opening week. And I have to say, like, the viewership numbers were actually very solid. I know there was a lot of doom and gloom in regards to GOATs. No one's going to want to watch this, and it's just going to bring in 0 viewers. A lot of people were just complaining that they wouldn't watch it. That appears not to be the case, after all. So Overwatch League opened its 2019 season earlier this past month with 13 million viewers across platforms, which saw a 30% increase in viewership. So on average, we had 440,000 viewers watching on any given minute of opening week, which was a 14% increase over this past year. And these numbers reflect viewers across all avenues. So that includes the ESPN app, includes Twitch streams, MLG.com, as well as the Disney XD broadcast. And it's crazy to think, like, now Overwatch League is broadcast in 6 different languages. I know they did a stat for, like, how many countries had watched it, and it was, like, more than 190, so that's a pretty staggering amount. And then we also have seen the rise of local watch parties popping up that have been even drawing bigger crowds than what the Blizzard Arena holds, which is just amazing. Like, the localization aspect is really starting to take form, and it's going to continue once we get into the travel weeks, which we got one coming up here very soon. But I was actually shocked to see just the spike of viewership, given the fact that there were a lot of negative Nancy's about what the meta would mean for people actually watching the Overwatch League.
Well, yes. All right, so here, controversial. I know Ed's going to say something crazy. GOATs, as much as like the fans like me and you, a lot of the people that probably listen to this podcast, GOATs, we don't enjoy GOATs as much. But GOATs is good for the Overwatch League. It is. GOATs is good for the actual Overwatch League because it is easy to watch. When you have, let's say, Dive, you are from a camera angle perspective, you're shooting all around the map. Like, yes, you're going to be following Widowmaker and you're going to be shooting heads, but you're missing so much of the action if they're not popping off. And they have to switch to this character, switch to this, and you're not seeing the whole fight. Where in GOATs, you're actually seeing the entire fight. Well, yes, it's pure chaos. Like when they initiate team fights, you're still seeing the whole fight. You're not being like, okay, well, this person's way back here. I can't see what they're doing. Oh, well, they got a kill. Well, we're not going to see that. And so on and so forth. So from a viewership perspective, GOATs is actually awesome. We just don't like GOATs. And GOATs needs to change. It's just good for viewership. Now, as to the rise in viewership, we're actually seeing a dip in Twitch numbers over last year. But here's the other thing. Last year, all the matches weren't on ESPN Plus. They weren't on Disney. And they are this year. Not all matches are on Disney, but all the matches are on Disney Plus, ESPN Plus. 3 or 4 matches are on Disney. They are making the times more friendly to Europe and China. They added more China teams, which is doing great. And overall, we're just more viewership. It's just spread out. I mean, I even went back today, and I was just looking at the videos from this past week. And if you look at replays of just Sunday's matches, the full 8-hour whatever match, there was 60,000 views of that. That's viewership right there. That is more viewership. It's Netflix version of viewership because you can skip all the commercials and all the useless stuff and just get straight to the match. But it's still viewership. And that was just on one of the VODs. Another one would have 60,000 viewership. Another one would have 70. It is kind of insane. Everyone just looks at the one number they can see from the Twitch channel, and it really screws with things. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I really want to see when we start talking about where they're doing the finals and semifinals. I'm really interested to see what the viewership is for that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the VODs, and it's important to note too that when you do go on the Overwatch League Twitch page and you're looking at the recent broadcasts, they do break it up. Not only they have one for the entirety of the day, but they also break it up on a match per match basis. They also break it up map by map if you want to deep dive into individual maps. So that's not even including the full spectrum, at least with the number that you brought up for the VOD aspect of it. So I'm curious to see how across the board the VOD viewership is when you kind of combine all of those aspects of just how you can view the overall games. But, open week numbers have been good. Yes, the Twitch numbers have taken a little bit of a dip, but we're still 100K plus pretty much every week since the Overwatch League came back on. And who knows, like come stage 2, if all the doom and gloom talk is real, that would only confirm that with the massive PTR updates that we should see an uptick in viewership. And if we don't, then all of that was just talk at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It is all talk. Mm-hmm. The people who complain the most about GOATs aren't turning off the Overwatch League. They're just complaining about GOATs. And the people who are complaining about GOATs are generally the people who are creating the Reddit cesspool of complaining. Like, it's true. Like, I mean, it's just the vocal minority. Like, that is what Reddit is, but that's the thing, the most vocal. So I don't know. I welcome a change in the meta as long as they change the meta. If GOATs was the same thing in stage 2, then you might start to see a dip. But I mean, these changes coming up is going to change that.
And I hope you liked what I typed in the Twitch chat for you.
Yes, I drink the tears of Houston Outlaws fans.
Yes, that's true. But anyways, speaking of Overwatch League, our good buddy Switch over at a very good website, omnicmeta.com, again, that is Switch from omnicmeta.com, actually launched some Overwatch League statistics on OmnicMeta, which I was so happy to see because, when it comes to the stats, we only get limited numbers, or at least limited categories in regards to how we can do breakdowns and, help with analysis, things like that. And what's cool about what OmnicMeta is doing is the fact that, yes, they do keep like the average per 10 minutes for different categories, and they got like the league leaders. So I know they're tracking like eliminations, hero damage, healing, final blows, ultimates earned, as well as who is dying the least amount of time per 10 minutes. But they also have been keeping track of the meta. So we get to see hero pick rates. We got to see week to week how it kind of fluctuates. Also, you can filter it by if it's an assault map or, control, things like that. And we don't really have an opportunity to get a look at those numbers really anywhere else that I have seen. So for Switch to come out with this has been very helpful, not only just, for an analysis perspective, but it has helped too with our fantasy. That being said, though, we have kind of seen some minor things, like with some main tank players having like a Lucio icon next to their name, acting as if they're Lucio players when that's not the case. But it's still really early on. And for what we have right now, it is still a very good tool. So I highly recommend people check it out. But have you had a chance to check out the new stat page? Because I know, I think they even added a feature where you can compare your stats to like the Overwatch League pros as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely checked it out, and it's super cool. I wish they would make one change to it. Like, the one thing I've noticed while looking through it all is have a specific amount of minutes played to qualify. Because if you look at these stats, they're very, very misleading. Like, okay, you look, Saya player, second and final blows. Saya players played one map. Like, okay, so he played one map and, got a lot of kills. That still isn't being played. Whole nother story. But, you look at deaths. Well, I mean, 4 of the top 5 are the New York Excelsior. Well, Animo is number 1. How much is Animo playing? How much is Arc playing? Arc's the 3rd.
Animo's played the majority.
Sorry. Yeah, I was thinking Arc. I was just trying to segue to Arc without you catching on.
Next try.
But Arc is number 3. Sleepy is number 3 in healing done, and he only played 2 series. Repel for the Vancouver Titans, I think played one map so far. So I wish there would be a certain time played. That's it. Mm-hmm.
like a filter, like a
Like a
threshold
filter.
to make you eligible, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes. One thing that stuck out to me, and I've been saying this all along, with just looking at these stats, is you can see dominance from two people, and the stats are there for it. Sinatraa on Zarya, number 1 in hero damage, number 3 in ultimates. Like, basically, how quickly they can get, ultimate charge. I'm assuming that's what that is.
It's how many ults you're earning in 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, and he's number 3 in there. That right there is like, okay, he's not getting a lot of final blows, but he's getting a lot of damage done, and he's getting the ultimate a lot. And the Zarya ult is the most important ult. It's the biggest like fight winning ult. The other one is the emergence of, in this meta, the best Zenyatta player in the league. In this meta, and that is Violet. Number 1 in healing, number 2 in ultimate. What?
No, I'm just saying strange, someone that I'd been hyping up.
It's just one of those things where he's... I want to see something where he's at. Okay, they don't really have a lot of the healers on the damage. But, he is just so dominant. And these stats kind of throw that out there. Like, what do you look for in a healer? Well, you look for healing, you look for the ultimates. What's the biggest counter to all the ultimates and GOATs? Transcendence. So he's getting the most ultimates out of any of the Zenyatta players out there. Like, you're looking now, Izayaki is at 6, Shaz 7, Boombox 9. If you're looking at Jonak, he's, hold on, I'm still scrolling, not even in the top 25. So it's one of those things. I'm not saying in every meta Violet's going to be better than Jonak, but like this shows in this meta, Violet is the best Zenyatta.
I do quickly want to point out though that Jonak's number specifically on ultimates is kind of skewered because primarily they don't even have to use Transcendence, so he's not earning another one.
Again, goes back to my power rankings.
I do agree. In this meta, Jonak is not the best Zenyatta player.
No, and I think Violet is. So it's just, you can see trends for sure, but it's not. Don't take it as the gospel,
right? But
you're definitely going to see trends, and
like Izayaki's numbers are inflated too, primarily because he's wasting a lot of them.
That, and they're going to they went to a lot of map 5s.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Just, we'll leave it there with that one. I want to say, all right, Atlanta, they have 3 of the top 5 people in eliminations. That's not very telling to me. Because, honestly, an elimination, you do 2 damage to somebody and then they die from somebody else, you get the elimination. You don't get... So, take this, all this with a grain of salt, but this is an awesome site. It is awesome for anything fantasy related. If you want to see how they're doing, like you said, I haven't seen where you can compare it to your own stats and see how crappy you are compared to them. Because it's true. But then, the meta thing is super nice too. And if you couldn't tell, the top 6, Lucio, Briggs, Zen, Zarya, D.Va, Reinhardt. In case any of you were wondering who the 6 most played characters in the game are for Overwatch League.
I never would have figured that. And you know who the next up is? The person that they swapped the D.Va out for.
Yep. No. The next one is Winston. They swap out.
Well, yeah, but Winston is technically still part of the 3-3 meta.
Oh yeah, but the top 6 was.
Okay. I'm talking about outside of the meta.
Outside of the meta, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love it. Go check out the site.
Absolutely. Well, anyways, we do have some roster news, at least for the Soul Dynasty. And I'm not going to share the dad joke dojo joke that we saw posted by Slambo. But if you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw it earlier today, because I did tag one of our good buddies, Multisword, about that, because he is a black belt in the dad joke dojo. But the Solar Coaster is looking to reach new heights by adding 2 new players. So joining the dynasty are Illicit and Hidley. Both come from Contenders Korea, where Illicit had played as a projectile DPS specialist for Blossom, and Hidley was part of O2 Blast, who at one point were competing under the name O2 Ardian, who were kind of like that Cinderella team that made a miracle run in the playoffs a couple seasons ago. And he is a flex support player, known for his Ana, Zenyatta, and Sombra flex play. So it's important to note, like, both of these players are 18, so they're both eligible to play. And the Dynasty, it's been a thing. It's been another kind of up and down season so far, and right now the Dynasty are ranked 13th out of the 20 teams in the league and are looking to secure their first playoff berth of any kind, whether, that's stage, season, whatever. But we've kind of seen how, we're still dealing with some communication issues. We're still not quite matching the aggression of Fisher. And it seems to me like it's been a constant case of we need someone to pair with Fleta. And hopefully Illicit is going to be the answer to it. But at this point, things have been so up and down. I don't know if this is going to be the right move, but I'm glad that they're actually making moves. Because making moves is better than just being at a standstill and just letting yourself kind of free fall, or, they're trying to adjust things before they dig themselves in too deep.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Fleta. First off, I get that Illicit is a projectile DPS player, and Fleta is the projectile DPS player. He's not replacing Fleta. Let's just get that out there right now. If he's coming into the lineup to start, he will replace Munchkin, and then Fleta will flex to whatever the hell he feels like, because it's Fleta. Like, Fleta is just another one of those people who's just so good on so many characters that I think he could relate. And Ryu Jaehong, I don't think has to worry about anything. Hidley, yes, he's a good support player, good Ana, good Zenyatta. But Ryu Jaehong has not played that bad. Like, again, it's not like for Soul, their tank lineup is solid for Soul. I like their tank lineup. I like their healers. I like one of their DPS. I'm not a Munchkin fan, so I hope Illicit can take that spot. But you nailed it right on the head. It's a communication issue. It's trying to, they played a very passive game all of last season. Well, that's the exact opposite of what you get with Fissure. And they just have to kind of come to a middle ground with all of it. And they're just so up and down. Like, if they follow Fissure's lead, I think they could do really good, but they're just not used to it. And they have to change their play style to match it. These are good backups, good people to really try and push the players so they don't lose their starting spots. But yeah, like you said, it's better to be signing people than just doing nothing, because who knows what the next stage will be for the meta. Like, these guys could be specialized in certain characters. Like, I mean, from what we've seen, you may need a Junkrat main, because he's kind of powerful. So we don't know what they're going to be doing, or if, Ana Zenyatta is going to be the meta for the healers. And you're like, well, perfect. We got Hidley and Ryu Jaehong play Ana and Zenyatta right there. There you go. So, we don't know what's to come, but it's glad that they're just getting more depth. And I do not have... I'm going to say the dad joke, because Because you teased it, and then all our listeners are like, what is he? So this was announced, and wonderful Slambo responded with, that is a highly illicit. And I'm like, oh God. He just went with the highly illicit.
Yeah, he said this is highly illicit news. And like, then on our Discord we have the dab in Widowmaker emoji, which you just put right underneath that.
Yeah, so that is the dad joke that Slambo came up with, and I applaud him for this.
I proudly showed it to my coworkers, and they shunned me for the rest of the day.
I can't, like, if there's ever a matchup that highly and illicit are both playing, it has to be done on the Overwatch League broadcast. It has to be done.
I would be really disappointed if that
it would be highly. It would be highly illicit if they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, we're gonna beat this one to death.
Just like the LA Valiant embracing their Twitch emote of Win Zero.
True.
Yeah. Wins out. And you know what the best part about that is? Everyone thought 100% everyone was going to be memeing Paris Eternal for their Twitch emote because of what it kind of resembles with the text. But no, it's been the LA Valiants that's been getting posted all the time.
of all the emotes that were like, who would have thought the LA Valiant would be yeah, no, you should probably change that real quick or win something. How about that?
Yeah.
I mean, what is worse?
One of those might be get in here quicker, though. One you can actually change, within like a minute. And the other one might take, the rest of the stage.
I mean, what is worse? Having that emote or submitting the wrong starting roster so your starting Zen player can't play the first map? Yes, I managed to flip it around to
which by the way, was not the first time that has happened. So,
so in case you didn't know,
I don't know how it keeps happening on that map, but it just happens.
Yeah, in case you didn't know, Raucus was accidentally not named a starter for map 1 of his match this week. And by the Overwatch League rules, they have to have their starting lineup in at a certain time, and you can't change it, barring something crazy. So Raucus had to sit map 1. And he came in map 2, 3, sat map 4. And this could be the difference maker in my bet with Ramses.
Mm-hmm.
So
how many times do they accidentally put Bonnie in?
Yeah, I would. Oh my God. If he misses it by like 50 points, I'm going to point back to this and be like, Outlaws did it to themselves. So,
yeah. But getting back to the emotes, like, who would have thought that the one that resembles anal was not going to be the one that everyone was going to meme? I never would have imagined it. But it's just the state of LA. It's just so dire right now that it's just overcome everything else.
Yeah. Or how about finger bang?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, 2 perfect examples. Nope. Win 0.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyways, guys, we did have an update today, a couple of hours before the podcast, about the Overwatch League Stage 1 playoffs. So we got some additional details on what is going down in Stage 1 playoffs. So we do know that the quarterfinal games are going to be held on March 21st and March 22nd. Then it'll be followed by the semifinals on March 23rd, wrapping up with the stage finals on March 24th. So just as a reminder, the way the format is going to work, we are going to have 8 teams out of the 20 qualifying for the Stage 1 playoffs. So you will have the leader from the Pacific Division as well as the Atlantic Division. They will have the top 2 seeds. And then the next 6 teams in the stand-ins based on the record, regardless of what division they're in, are also going to qualify. So as of right now, only the New York Excelsior have clinched a spot in the playoffs. And there's also only one team that has been eliminated from Stage 1 playoff contention, which has been kind of the one I've been memeing all night, the Win Zeros themselves, the LA Valiant. who maybe can beat the Outlaws? Question mark? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But anyways,
did you just Ron Burgundy that? You Ron Burgundy a question, like could beat them maybe? Like you just Ron Burgundy to Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, we're being beyond meta at this point. But the playoffs are single bracket elimination, so we'll have the quarterfinal games being first to three. So they're using the Slambo terminology for that, so we don't confuse anyone. And you have the semifinals and the finals being first to four. Now, what we didn't know, Ed, is that after this first round, the bracket is going to be reseeded. So when it comes to the maps, we'll have the higher seeded team selecting the first map, and then the losing team after that will get to select the next map. We also got to look at the prize pool. So like first place is going to take home 200,000. The runner-ups will get 100,000. Third and fourth place will get 50,000, with the fifth through eighth teams all taking home 25,000. And of course, we can't forget ABC is going to be airing the semifinals and the finals from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time on both of the days. So that'll be on that Saturday and on that Sunday. So I would say, like right now, no surprise, NYXL looking like they're probably going to go 7-0. Maybe the Titans will join them in that regard. But I want to get your thoughts on the newer news in regards to them actually reseeding the bracket. What do you think that's going to provide for the quality of the games that we'll be seeing?
I mean, it's going to diminish the beginning quality. So you're talking quarters, semis, and stuff like that. Because, you're going to see worse matchups if the number one seed is not, is always going to play the worst seed. You're just going to get worse matchups. You want to see the best matchups possible in everything. Now, what this will do is it will force us to get it forces them to get the finals matchup that I think everyone wants. Instead of it being, all right, so everyone wants New York Excelsior versus Titans in this meta. That's just what they want. Well, now the likelihood of that happening grew because you have the reseeding. Because, both of them are going to have an easier road to get to the finals. Because, in a normal, even without reseeding, I don't think the 1 and the 2 would face each other. But, who knows what's going to happen. Now, you'll know this ahead of me, Totem, is they're not in the same division, are they? I guess I never really looked.
I am too busy typing in chat to actually answer your question. I don't think they are.
No, they aren't. Okay, that's another thing I was worried about, because if they were in the same division, then only one can be the number one seed. Mm-hmm. And then, Vancouver would be the number 3 seed or something like that. So it will be interesting to see. I like it. It's what's done in a lot of, esports, is the reseeding to make things fair. So I'm fine with that. The bigger thing in all of this is not the reseeding. It's not any of that stuff. It's the simple fact that it's going to be on ABC. It's going to be on national television, free to everyone. It's going to be on a station that you can tune in to watch. I believe, do they have college football? I think college football is on there. I can't remember what major sport ABC has over NBC or CBS or Fox. They all seem to have one. But you can get Overwatch League Network free on your television, and it is going to be massive.
I want to point out, Ed, you said Overwatch League Network. I wish we were on TV. Don't get me wrong.
You could technically get us on TV.
I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah. Why not, Totem?
I have a hard enough time paying for a Libsyn across our 5 podcasts at this point.
We should. This is all right. So we need to get a new Patreon goal. So it's being cover Lisbon charges, next level. Get on a major TV network. Nothing in between. Just one and then the other. But I mean, if you thought the numbers for the Overwatch League were massive at what 10 million it was for the grand finals last year, Stage 1 finals will blow that out of the water.
Right.
I guarantee it. Like, I guarantee you that it will have probably double. Probably 20 to 30 million viewers. And that's across all platforms. Mm-hmm. It will have 20 to 30 million viewers, which, pretty effing insane. Like, if you think about those numbers, that's 20 to 30 million, I want to say off the top of my head, is the viewership that they get for a World Series game. So you would have as many people watching the Overwatch League Stage 1 finals as a Game 1 of the World Series. Let that soak in for a second. Like, that's massive. So, that is the biggest news out of all of this that I think a lot of people are forgetting about. So, that's just me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully we'll get those numbers quickly and not have to wait like 2-3 weeks like we did with the opening week numbers. So definitely keep an eye on that. But absolutely tune in, help the TV ratings, because the more viewers that tune in, the more likely we are to see additional coverage on television and see
or Chicago team there. An additional team in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 100%. But anyways, let's talk about the week that was in the Overwatch League and do some quick Stage 1, Week 3 takeaways. I like how it's cut off in the agenda title on the on the broadcast. It says takeaway, guys. I'm serious. It's just going to scroll very slowly. There it is. Okay, we're good. Honestly, there are so many things that I could talk about in this past week. So let's first start by something that I've technically already talked about. So, LA, they may be known as the City of Angels, but they're going to need a miracle to turn their Stage 1 around at this point. They have one win collectively as two teams. You got the Gladiators, who have the sole win between the two. You had the Valiant, who are grasping at straws, looking for that first win. You have Kariv trying to figure out how to play Zarya. You got Izayaki wasting Transcendences. You have Fate just not getting protected on the front line, getting killed first a lot of the time. And then you had the Gladiators, who... yes, we saw Decay. He turned 18. Gladiators fought the London Spitfire. You had Decay matching and even surpassing Prophet's Zarya numbers, which was great. But then you go into game number 2, and then Decay was like a 180 differential in regards to player performance. And it just seems like both of these teams are dealing with a lot of issues. You have Bishu has been sick, dealing with an illness for the Gladiators, and he basically came out on Twitter and confirmed that he's not going to be performing the rest of the stage, just due to the fact that he has not been practicing. So, Bishu was always kind of like that translator for the Gladiators, and it's hard to kind of tell how much of it is communication issues, just because Bishu is not in the lineup, and how much of it is just the fact that Roar is being way too aggressive and dying first, arguably more than any other main tank in the Overwatch League right now. So it's been kind of a shell shock opening for Stage 1 for both the LA Valiant and the LA Gladiators. And at this point, I really urge them, like, hey, it's time to reconsider, for the Gladiators at least, potentially looking at bringing in Panker. Now, I know, there's a caveat to this, and that is the fact that on the Gladiators Legion, I don't know if saying, hey, XQC, come in and be our full-time tank is going to be the answer for the Tier 2 scene. But with the performance that we have seen from Roar, it's very hard to not look towards Panker as being a potential answer, knowing that he is a two-way contracted player. So I don't know if they're just going to let Roar ride out the rest of the stage, but they need to be exploring other options right now.
No, I completely agree. Like, there are a lot of issues going on with the Gladiators right now. I mean, yes, Decay, very big bright spot for the team. This team should have more wins. Like, it is shocking to me with the team they have. All they really did was, get rid of Fissure, but was that really the biggest deal? We thought going in because, with the rest of the team, they have a legit support line. I mean, Chaz Big Goose, phenomenal. They had Hydration, who's good. Surefour, who is the darling of the league, and the prize of the DPS free agent market in Decay. And then you're like, okay, they got Bishu and all that stuff, and you're just like, does one player make that big of a difference? Like, does just not having Fissure and having Roy in there make this team one of the worst in the league? I say no, because as much as everyone's down on the Gladiators, they have one bad loss. The rest of them, so if you think about who they lost to, so they lost to the Soul Dynasty, whatever. Week 1, they lost to the Soul Dynasty. That team the Soul Dynasty is completely hit or miss. So I could see it, Soul beating LA. They beat San Francisco. Then they lost to Paris, who everyone calls they're one of the top 3 GOATS teams in Overwatch League.
Yeah, okay. It's worth noting, too, a lot of people are very high on the Shock as well, which was their win.
Yes. They lost to the Spitfire, who, after they got rid of Birdring and brought in Guard, have been night and day difference. Like, they are a good team now. They sucked week 1. They got rid of Birdring, made the right change. They're doing really good. And then they lost to the Spark. And the Spark is another one of those Soul teams that is completely hit and miss. And they lost to the Spark because the Spark made a change on their own, and they decided to just go with Gouchway and Tank. Not, hey, we're going to, flip out this person, blah, 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 all that stuff. No, we're going to stick with one Tank. We're going to go with it. So they lost there. They have not had easy matchups, and they don't have easy matchups next week either. Like, they play Atlanta, they play the Charge. I don't think the Gladiators are this bad. And I think a lot of people are just like in disbelief on what's going on with this team. Just because there's too much skill on the team for them to be bad. Like, you can't have one of the best support duos in Overwatch League, a stellar DPS line, and an okay tank line and only win one game. Like, so I completely see them changing around. The other LA team, though, well, that's just a shit show. Like, they have 2 stars on that team, and they need a complete gut job. I think they need a full rebuild at this point. I mean, you have KSF starting on main healer. What? Like,
well, so that's Kuki.
Kuki is, sorry. Kareev, who was was their backup support last year, is now their best DPS. You have Agilities stuck on Baguette duty. You have Space, who's an amazing off-tank. Fate, who is, well, not that good. Like, you have 2 people on the team that you can build around. The rest, I think they need a little bit of a rebuild. But, yeah, the LA teams this week, it wasn't pretty. It really wasn't pretty. So you had that. I think, what are some other takeaways I had? Oh, I was going to ask you this. Who is the number 1 team, the number 1 most surprising team in a good way in Overwatch League this year?
I actually have that as one of my notes, actually. And that is a team that I feel like at this point cannot go unnoticed like they have been, and that is a Toronto Defiant.
Now,
Okay. Well, I'll get my reasons, and you can share yours. So for me, the Defiant, they came out, they didn't have their final form, so to speak, that's how they tweeted it whenever Neko came back from his suspension. But this is a team who pulled from Metagame, who had always kind of been a mid-card or mid-table team throughout all of Contender's career, as long as they've been around, which has been quite some time. But Toronto has quietly just been stringing together wins. Ivy has been putting up really monstrous numbers as a DPS player, aka just plain Zarya, as many do. But you also have Neko coming back, and the only thing that kind of like took people back, I feel like, is when Neko was out, they had Aid starting at flex support, who is one of their main support players. And then since Neko came back, they've just been playing Roki on main support, despite how good Aid was doing, and that's kind of confused a little bit of the community. But Toronto was always kind of like that team where I looked at Neko and I looked at Envy, who is their flex tank, and I was like, okay, like this is going to be another one of the redemption arcs. Because Envy really only got benched by the Valiant last season because of Space. Because Space was really their golden boy. They were waiting on him to turn 18, and Space has been a top 3 Diva player really since he started playing in the Overwatch League. So Envy getting a second chance has definitely made the most of it. And we've just seen a level of consistent play from all aspects of their lines to really make me reevaluate how they are as a team. Because right now, like, I even have them as like a top 6 team right now in this current form in this meta.
No, I agree. Toronto Defiant are a pleasant surprise because we were not high on them at all going into the year. It's one of those things where if you look at their actual schedule, and I hate to keep saying this, but they are one of those teams that takes advantage of playing against crappy teams and can't beat the good teams. If they beat Houston week 1, Lottie freaking Da, who hasn't beaten Houston? They lost to Atlanta.
The LA Valiant happened.
Toronto beat the LA Valiant. They lost to New York XL, and they beat the Uprising. So I guess Boston is a semi-good team, but they're still bottom 10. And that's their best win. Their best win of the year is they beat Boston. It's just Toronto is a fantasy darling. Because while they may lose and they may win, they're going to be put up a crazy amount of fantasy numbers in the process. So I think a lot of people love them. But like I said, they're fun to watch. I will say that. Them and Atlanta are just a fun team to watch in general. I mean, like you said, Envy really shining, Ivy really shining, Stellar really shining. Honestly, the one that's probably surprised me the most is Asher. It's because Asher hasn't played. A lot of people had Asher as like a sleeper coming into this year, and they're like, well, no, we're just not going to play Asher. So, yeah. But yeah, so you had that. But the team I was actually referring to as the biggest surprise in a good way is the Guangzhou Charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be the other team that would have been on my mind.
Yeah,
they're the funnest team to me.
They're what?
They're the team that I enjoy watching the most.
Yeah, because they are just like, you know what? They're like a less good New York Excelsior. Like, they're going to play what they want to play. They're going to be like, we know what we're good at. We're going to go that way. I mean, Shu has sneakily become like a top 5 Zenyatta player, and people don't really quite know it, but like Shu has rewarded people for watching it. Happy is an amazing player, just all around. He gets to play when he gets going on that Widowmaker. He's beyond insane. Hotba is the ultimate, like, what's Hotba going to come out on this map as? Like, Rio's been good. Chara's been good. Kib comes in. Like the one, it's like the one, non-Asian Pacific player on the team. And it's like, hey, we got Kib. And he just comes in and he's like, yep, I'm going to do good. Like, they're just fun to watch and they're playing good. Like, they're just, like, they have some good wins. Obviously they lost to the Hunters. They beat the Fuel. They lost to the Titans. Then they beat Florida. They beat the Valiant. They play the Gladiators this week, though. And that, I think, is going to be actually a probably pretty decent test for them. So they're a fun one to watch, and this week was no different. I mean, getting 2 wins, one against Mayhem, one against Valiant, even though both teams are not that good, it's just fun to watch them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted by something Mel posted on her social media. Apparently, there's some stuff going down that I'm going to have to look into after the podcast is over. But some of the other takeaways that I have from this past week. Let's talk about Runaway here really quick. So, if you guys have watched our power ranking videos at all, you've probably seen a couple of comments about where we rank Vancouver. Specifically, us overvaluing Vancouver Titans, aka Runaway. And we are entering week 4. Vancouver has not dropped a series. And, right now it's looking pretty solid. They're probably going to make a deep run in the playoffs. They're looking like one of the better 3-3 teams out there. And I feel like at this point, it's definitely gotten to a spot where people can justify the hype behind Vancouver Titans. Now, that being said, I'm sure that there are going to be people out there who are going to be like, it's not going to mean anything until they beat New York Excelsior. Add to that, I will say, couldn't you technically say that about literally every other team in the Overwatch League? Like, really, honestly. But Vancouver has looked solid. They are going to come out on top of their division in Stage 1. And for the hype that was put behind them, whether you think that it was justified or not, this is exactly how we expected this to play out, because we basically noted, hey, this is a team that came in with a full roster. And just like in Season 1, you had teams like London, like New York, that had that pre-built-in synergy. And what happened in Season 1, Stage 1? They absolutely crushed it. Lo and behold, we are in the 2019 season. Runaway comes into the Overwatch League, and they have already seen a lot of the players in the current league themselves. Now, granted, some of them are maybe fractured and on different teams, or some of them are even still on, core rosters that have like 4 or 5 of the same pieces. But they've used that built-in synergy that they've had, where they're competing in a meta that they dominated in Contenders Korea. And they're having a very solid track record. And it's not like it's a fluke or anything. This team has been legit. And I feel like people still are just kind of getting to the point where I think from a community perspective, people are kind of looking at the power rankings and they're just looking at like, okay, like how high are the Titans? And I feel like it's too early to judge where the expansion teams are. But I feel like it's blown out of proportion just because Vancouver seems to be the expansion team that everyone is talking about that. So they're kind of have tunnel vision on them specifically, which kind of like fluctuates how they're actually viewing them as a team per se. So that's why you see a lot of people like being like, well, Vancouver, like all these people talking about Vancouver are just overvaluing them as a team. No, that's not the case. It's just we had set expectations. They performed just as good, if not better, than New York Excelsior at this point. And that New York Excelsior Titans match, whenever it does happen, whether it's in the playoffs, which it absolutely will be, or later on in the regular season, is going to be one of those series that is going to probably put the final nail in the coffin in regards to the overvalued hype aspect that some people are looking at.
Well, here's the reason that I think the biggest thing to shut down people who think that the community or people are overvaluing Titans. All right, let me ask you this, Total. How long has the entire team of, I don't know, we'll go with the New York Excelsior. How long has the entire team been together?
Were we talking about the core of the Luxury Watch roster, like pre-Overwatch League?
Let's look at their starting six they have right now. How long have they been together as the starting six?
Well, that's the thing. The starting six is kind of different just because they have Nene started, but they joined the league basically. Start of 2017, of late October, basically.
Late October. Philadelphia Fusion. How long have they been together as a whole? Probably close to the same. The point I'm getting at is, how long has Runaway been together? That is why. I think it's 2 years now. I think they've been playing as a unit for 2 years together now. That is why they are not being overvalued. That's why some people are undervaluing them. I think the best way to, if you can, go watch. There was an interview with Sinatraa done by OWL Recap. They do weekly interviews with players, and they interviewed Sinatraa this week, and they flat out asked, of the new teams, who is the best one? And Sinatraa flat out said, it's the Vancouver Titans. GOATS is all about communication and knowing how to play with their teammates. They've been together for 2 years now, working on communication, working as a team. That is why they are so good. I personally undervalued that coming into this year. Like, I didn't take it high enough. That's why, I had them below the spark, stuff like that. I did not take all that into account. Yes, New York Excelsior have been playing for a while together. They added some new components. They added Flower. They added Nene, stuff like that. They lost Janice. Like, they lost people. But despite Bumper's best efforts of losing every match.
And his Volskaya ice skated.
Yes. I will say this. Bumper killed himself. You don't lose fantasy points for that. You do get points for the kill he had. So actually, it's a net gain fantasy-wise. But that's why the Titans are so good, is because people just don't realize how coordinated GOATS is. I think I said this last week. I can't remember on which show, but I'm pretty sure it was this one, where I said, GOATS, what they play, they can play GOATS because they have communication and they have teamwork. You, as a player, if you're not in the Overwatch League, you can't play GOATS. I'm sorry, you're not good at GOATS because you do not have that coordination and teamwork with randoms. Maybe if you're training with a group of 6 and you play 4 times a week together and you go into the comp ladder as a 6 stack, maybe you can play GOATS. You're not playing it well, but you can play it better than randos. That's just how GOATS is. Everything is revolving around doing things at the exact right time, in the exact right order, and doing all that stuff. That is why the Titans can do what they can.
Absolutely. So another thing I wanted to talk about is I want to talk about Atlanta Reign really quick, specifically when it comes to the compositions that we have been seeing. So, looking back at that Atlanta Reign versus Paris Eternal match, we keep seeing the Torbjorn pick from Defran on Ilios well, which has worked every single time that we have seen it. Now, they haven't been able to stay on the Torbjorn for the entirety of the round, but they've been getting like 60, 70% control before someone is able to retake the point. But what was very telling to me about that series was, one, the frontline battle, where they were always winning a shield battle. So Ben Best, who is the main tank for the Paris Eternal, was dying on average 16 times a map, which was the lead in the lobby. And it got to the point where they were on Temple of Anubis, to CP, lol. And Atlanta come out, and they kind of do the Season 1 strat where they have an Orisa shield on the high ground, which is on, kind of like the archway near the front. They had a Widowmaker player there behind the Orisa shield. And then on the other rooftop behind that, you also had the Junkrat. So it kind of is this composition that is a meta breaker in a sense, where you don't want to clump up because we lost Ed. Hopefully he'll get back. They have this composition that forces you not to clump up, and immediately, right off the bat, what happened was Paris Eternal were looking to initiate the fight, and then a Conch Mine comes in, kills 2 supports almost immediately. And the value was already there. Now, with that composition, what Atlanta was trying to do was make it where they were trying to put, Paris in a situation where they were going to switch to a dive. And that's what they were trying to do, as Ed is joining us again. Hi, Ed. So we never got to see the switch from Paris Eternal until like the last 25 seconds of the map, when they finally went to some dive heroes. But Atlanta had been coming in, they've been running these off-kilter strategies that really no one else has been running to that sort of extent. And it's put these other teams in a position where maybe they would have to move to other heroes that aren't meta, or they just have not been practicing. And for Paris, who a lot of us have hyped up to be one of the better 3-3 teams in the league, they couldn't run the 3-3. Atlanta was basically goading them into making swaps, and Paris just noped right out of that, and we saw how much they were getting punished. And for a series that we thought was going to go the other way, but still be a very close series, there really weren't that many aspects of that particular match that was close. So it was very enlightening. So it's kind of hard to tell how much of it is us maybe putting too much stock value in the Paris Eternal 3-3, and how much of this off-kilter strats, or how undervalued maybe we pegged the Atlanta raid. So I feel like there's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but Atlanta had their own unique style, and it's worked more times than not so far. And I feel like at this point in time, if anyone is going to be able to sort of like break the meta, so to speak, and have someone transition to running something that is like straight dive or something, it will be the Atlanta raid.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of gotten this feeling when I've watched Atlanta play, and, granted, I haven't watched every minute of every single one of their matches, but I've watched the majority of them, and yes, they do play off meta a lot. And I think that's, kind of big brain 9,000 IQ on their coach's part. Because it's not like they're trying to break the meta. It's they realize they play it against who they think is the best at the meta. And on certain mats, they're, like you said, they're daring them to get off goats, because they feel once they switch off goats, they're an inferior team. And that is what Paris is. And I think everyone kind of agrees that Paris is not a great team outside of goats. It's, Cruz can't really come in and be the aggro Cruz that he normally is. Like you said, Ben Best is just not as effective. Like, the team isn't as effective because they're not non-goats team. And they've tried to force them off of goats on the right map. And they've done that a lot, like whether it's on Ilios, stuff like that. But on like actual goats maps, they still run it and against certain teams, but it's against those certain teams that they're like, you know what? No, we're going to force them to either stick with goats and lose, or we're going to force them to switch, which we know we can beat them at. If Paris would have switched, they could have probably easily countered Atlanta. But the thing is they're just so stuck in we have to play goats. This is what we're best at. This is how we win. We have to stick on this and just try and push through. And that's exactly what Atlanta was trying to get out of them. So it was a big brain move by them. Now, is it still going to work that way once the next meta comes around? That's the big question.
All right, well, with that being said, let's quickly look ahead at this upcoming week's games for Stage 1, week number 4. So I quickly do want to note for not only week number 4, but week 5, the schedule is going to be a little bit different. I know the first couple of days we only have like 3 matches, and then next week is actually the travel week, where a number of teams are going to have a bye week, so please keep that in mind. There's also going to be 2 less days of Overwatch League in week 5 because of that. But, Ed, when we look at this week ahead, what matches are you primarily looking forward to? Because there's some pretty spicy matches that have some major playoff implications.
Yeah, okay, so looking at this, I'd say... the one that probably sticks out, Friday is the best day of Overwatch matches we have. Thursday will go the first day. These are bad matchups. The best matchup that day on Thursday is Atlanta versus the LA Gladiators. That's probably going to be the best matchup. The rest are meh. Friday, though, you have the 2 best matchups of the week. I'm going to talk about one, because I know you'll probably want to talk about the other. I'll go with New York Excelsior versus the San Francisco Shock. The San Francisco Shock have kind of surprised everyone and kind of done as good as a lot of people probably expected. They're a good team. And this is going to be the first actual test for the New York Excelsior. In my mind, like New York, yes, they played Toronto, but again, like I said before, I'm not the biggest Toronto bandwagon. They're fun to watch. They're a good team. I don't think they're a top-tier team. I think San Francisco in this meta is a top-tier team. So New York versus San Francisco is going to be the first real test for the NYXL. So that is definitely a match I'm looking forward to on Friday. On Saturday, Hanzo Spark versus the Toronto Defiant. Because it's a battle of the mid-tier teams that could be better, could be worse. We just don't know yet.
Right. I quickly want to note, though, Ed, like with that series, do you expect Spark to start Gushue again, like they did this past week?
Yes. I think they're going to stick with Gushue now. I think over No Smite, I think the results kind of spoke for themselves. Like they looked more confident. They just looked like they were going in and having a good time and winning, playing as a team. Yes, there's probably some form of language barrier there with Gushue starting, but you know what? Other teams have gone through it. The Spark can get through it. So I think Gushue is very much their starting main tank. And especially with these future PTR changes, I think it's smart because I still think I think Winston is basically going to become the new main tank over Reinhardt. And if that's the case, then you're definitely going with Gushue over No Smite. So they're just getting that in early. So I think the Spark will actually win this one over the Defiant, personally. And then on the last day, I guess it's going to be the Paris Eternal versus the San Francisco Shock. We haven't seen a lot of Paris play yet, and we just don't know what to see. And this is a big week for Paris because they are playing 2 of the top 5 teams in the league this week. So you're going to get a lot of, Paris Eternal could stay where they're at, or they could plummet all the way down our rankings after this next week. So I'm very much looking forward to this, the Paris Eternal versus the San Francisco Shock matchup. So what about you? What are the matches you are looking forward to?
All right, well, taking a look at what I've written down, some of them you already mentioned. For Friday, obviously, Eternal Titans is going to be another one of those series where I know if we're looking for a straight 3-3 battle, this one might be one of the more telling ones just because, we hype Titans up as being probably the strongest 3-3 team. And then Eternal, how are they going to respond after what Atlanta did to them? So I don't quite know what to expect from that one, but it'll be a good test for the Titans in retrospect that, it's an EU versus Korean GOATS battle, and I don't know if, 6 GOATsmen is going to beat 6 European GOATmen. So that'll be interesting. NYXL Shock 2 is obviously going to be a pretty telling game, and I want to see Shock do well in this series. I really do, but I don't have as much faith in the tank duo for the Shock as I do NYXL. And I feel like with how much Meko has been kind of flexing over to the Sombra, I expect there to be a lot of disruption on his parts. With that being said, though, Shock have been doing a lot of switching things around. Like, Architect really didn't play this past week, but I would love to see the Rascal May come out against the NYXL. I feel like they're going to have to do some more off-kilter stuff to really throw NYXL off, because if they try to go head-to-head with them in the traditional sense of the word, I don't think the Shock will put up a good fight against NYXL.
You also have Jonak versus Violet.
Mm-hmm.
That is the individual matchup of the week for me. Mm-hmm. The first time Violet headshots Jonak, it will be a glorious moment.
Yeah, and I will say, too, for the Shock, this is not an easy week for them, because they face New York Excelsior, and then to close out the week, they face Paris Eternal. So it really kind of puts them in a situation where this is do or die week for them making the playoffs. This is a week that they could easily go 0-2. And potentially fall out of that bubble,
It's the same with Paris. San Francisco plays NYXL, Paris plays Vancouver, and then they play each other. One of these teams is going to be 0-2. Guaranteed. I mean, so, it's going to be an interesting week.
Yeah, the other series that I'm intrigued by is a match that we just saw this past week in the Shanghai Dragons versus the Dallas Fuel. So, rewind this past week, and Shanghai should have won their third match in a row. They were in the driver's seat, and then they stepped off the payload after they captured the first objective on Dorado due to a communication error, and then Dallas took the map, and then they took map 5. And honestly, with such a disastrous C9, when you do that, you do not recover.
It's not a C9. It's a Shang 9.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be renamed to Shang 9. That was the most egregious not getting on the card I've seen in the Overwatch League. So, it is now a Shang 9, not a C9.
Absolutely. So definitely a lot of good matches. So definitely tune in this week. Just as a reminder, just due to the schedule, because there are less matches on Thursday and Friday. The start time for this week is going to be when the normal second match would start any other week. So we'll have a little bit later of a start overall when it comes to the start of the broadcast. So please keep that in mind if you're doing watch parties or anything like that. But Ed, Overwatch League is going on, and then we also have pretty much every other region playing now that Overwatch Contenders is back. So I'll be honest, I'm going to keep this one kind of brief, primarily just due to the fact that, 1, we have some Overwatch Contenders news for the end of the show, and 2, the fact that I just do not have time to watch all this Overwatch Contenders. But I do quickly want to note that, we have Contenders back across the region, so we have more coverage for Path to Pro than ever before, and a lot of that's just due to the fact that, North America was split into 2 groups, which I know that you and I had covered on one of the prior episodes when they kind of did the draft, where, they had Fusion University, picking the first pick on their side, and then you had Atlanta Academy, who were the runner-ups last season, starting the other side. And so we have NA East, NA West, and we do know, like we saw Fusion University, they opened up their season in a Mat 5 win. Shocker, I know. Fusion at any level winning the series in Mat 5 never happens. They're not known for that at all, except they do it like almost every game. But they beat Second Wind in a thrilling 5-map series. I highly recommend you guys go back. And just as a heads up, if you guys have not been paying attention to Philadelphia Fusion or what's going on with their academy team, we do know that Karkar was picked up from Second Wind to Fusion University, which guarantees Elk is not going to be seeing play in contenders. He's full-time Philadelphia Fusion main roster as an alternate to Neptuno, because Neptuno still one of the better main supports in the league, but it's always good to see Elk in there, except when he's on Zenyatta, but that whole nother discussion. That's not his role. But we also saw the debut of Toronto Defiance Academy team, who are the Montreal Rebellion. Again, we covered them in a prior episode, but their debut did not go so hot because they did put up a goose egg against the Uprising Academy, who unveiled a new logo, which looks really nice. Other quick notes is the fact that, the Dynasty Academy team, Gen G Esports, we got the return of Wikid, who was on the Dynasty at one point. So he's DPSing for Gen G. And then Gen G also signed Wuyol, who had played for London Spitfire in Season 1 before he moved to XL2 Academy. And I already mentioned Runaway, opened up a 4-0 win. But if you guys have not been following the Tier 2 news, this is online only right now. And I'll be honest, I haven't caught too much of all the broadcasts, but I remember watching some of the Contenders Korea English broadcast, and it was rough. The production value is definitely taking a step back, but I don't want to judge it too harshly right now just because it was opening week. It was the first day. But they have kept it where for the teams, they are still doing face cams, which I thought was cool. So you kind of still get that feeling of seeing the players at least, but it's not the same without it being in a LAN environment. So I'm curious to see how the production is going to stabilize over time. But it was definitely a rough go of it early on. But I'm just happy that Contenders is back, regardless of whether or not I'm going to have the time to watch it. But there are definitely going to be a couple of teams, primarily Runaway and Fusion University, and of course ATL Academy, who I will be keeping an eye on and trying to tune in as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it right on the head with the shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Overwatch League Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't record Mondays, you do. So really, you have even less time than I do, and I would be overloaded if I watched all the Contenders. But there are certain teams that I will keep an eye on. Like you said, I will still keep an eye on Fusion University and see if they can go for the 4-peat. 4-peat, 5-peat? Is it at a 5-peat now? It's going to be at a 5-peat. And ATL, because we got to keep an eye on Sugar Free. Sadly, spoiler, they did not win tonight. They lost. So ATL down a series already. So you have all that, and it's gonna be hard to keep up with Contenders, just because of everything that's going on, and that's unfortunate because knowing about Contenders really helped us with all the new teams coming in this year. Helped us out with fantasy because we knew what we were expecting from a lot of these teams, and that's really going to kind of go by the wayside, and that's unfortunate. But it's a byproduct of the pro scene being so good and fantasy and stuff like that. You just don't have time for all of it.
Crazy. Who knows that I wouldn't be able to tune in as much as I would like, because honestly, pretty much 7 days a week, we have Overwatch stuff going. At least I do. And I just can't add additional days. I mean, you still take in a lot. Just because you are watching quite a bit of Overwatch League. So you know the struggle, just maybe to like a 75th percentage or percentile, but not the full commitments.
Yes.
But it definitely is one of those things. So luckily, we'll have another avenue to keep up with contenders, which I'll get into later tonight. But we got to jump into our main discussion because I know we are already nearing almost 2 hours. So we've had multiple PTR updates, some of which were bigger than others, and we saved the bigger changes for our main discussion because at this point, they've basically touched 2/3 of the hero pool in the game. Now, last week we touched on a lot of these, but let's talk about the one that dropped mid-show as we were recording this past week in what was arguably probably bigger changes than everything else that we talked about last week, which was a lot of different heroes, don't get me wrong. But let's talk about the changes that directly impact this meta specifically. So first up, let's talk about Junkrat. Now, Junkrat we'll talk about in both of these patch notes, just because this is the change on the PTR, while it's still on the PTR that you alluded to earlier. So to start off, this past Wednesday, they were taking a look at Junkrat and the frag launcher impact damage, which they increased from 40 to 60. So what that means is that they kept his explosive damage the same at 80, but his direct impact damage was increased from 120 to 140. And they also took a look at Lucio. And Ed, I want to get your thoughts on these one by one as we go through them, and then we'll circle back to Junkrat during the next one. So for Lucio, they looked at his speed boost. So the amplification was reduced from 70% to 50%. The speed boost effect was reduced from 30% to 20%. His sound wave now counts towards offensive assists. And then they also increase the wall ride speed buff from 20% to 40%. Now, looking back, Lucio, pretty much since the game came out, has been meta. And speed boost is definitely a huge part of that. So what are your thoughts on them finally taking a closer look at that aspect of his toolkit?
All right, so of all the changes that we're going to talk about, sneakily, I think this is the one that is the GOAT's killer. Without, and a lot of people may not realize it, sadly. GOATs is made possible by a couple of things. But one of the biggest things is the fight initiator, which has always started by speed boosting the entire team into the other team past the shield and causing mass chaos. You nerf the speed boost and all that stuff that Lucio's giving to the rest of the team, that is going to affect how you can initiate a GOAT's team fight. So with these changes, you're going to go in slower. The crossfade is going to be slower. Overall, the bonus effect that the team gets and the reason you really have the Lucio in there is reduced. And I think that is going to be the GOAT's killer. This has nothing to do with his actual ability to be a main healer and do all this stuff. These changes were specifically targeted at GOATs. There is no, in pleb levels of Overwatch, the speed boost amplification and the speed boost effect and the sound amplifier, all that stuff, these changes will have no effect on you in non-GOATs games. Because, I can't say no effect. It will have a minor effect on it. But these changes will completely change GOATs. I think they finally realized that it wasn't, everyone thought that it was Baguette that was causing GOATs, and they kept nerfing her, and then they realized, no, it's not her. It's the Lucio and honestly the Reinhardt. It's those two characters that really did the most and what was causing them to be so dominant, and they nailed it on the head with Lucio. It was the speed boost. So yeah, great change. It doesn't affect the overall game. It affects the meta. So this is a sign of changing, doing hero changes that affect pro play, that change pro play, but doesn't affect the rest of the game, which is what you like to see a lot of the times. Like, it's not changing the way any of you are playing the game right now. It's just not. But it will affect how the pros play it, because this is something that is causing the meta. So I love this change. So, yeah, guess I can't really say much more than that.
All right, well, next up, we have McCree. So, again, they reduce... Honestly, didn't we talk about the McCree changes last week?
I honestly can't remember.
Either way, I know they listed it again. Well, just to reiterate, even if we did cover it last week, I honestly can't remember, guys, but I'm pretty sure we did. They looked at Fan the Hammer, reducing the damage from 55 to 50. And then for the Deadeye, they increase the DPS from 275 to 550 after locking onto targets for 1.5 seconds. Okay, so, that McCree alt fire been pretty good. So I'm not too surprised. 5 damage. I mean, it's a fair amount when you consider how many shots that is. So it does add up over time. But what I really like is the Deadeye change, because it's going to be a lot more potent, and you're gonna see more kills finalized from it, outside of just using it as a zone in alt or being a shield breaker, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's crazy, the Deadeye change. Like, the Fan the Hammer, okay, I get it. The Deadeye change on its own, you're just like, okay, when you use Deadeye, he can do all sorts of damage, but he's still a sitting duck when he uses his ult. But when you combine Deadeye with Baptiste's invulnerability shield, you have chaos. Like, you can kill people through a shield. Like, you can destroy a shield and kill the people behind it. That's insane. Like, no one on the field is safe when these two are paired together. Now, will this become meta, that these are paired together like this? Who knows? But it becomes a deadly ult when paired with him. Like, being able to do that amount of damage and just not even have to have that much charge up time is insane. So I love this change. I think this springboards McCree past Ashe as being like the hit scan range hero. Like, it was, Ashe was a little bit better than McCree and so on and so forth. But I think this catapults McCree past Ashe. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some of this. Pine is too. Pine is very much looking forward to it.
It's important to note too, though, like they also had reverted the the Soldier 76 bullet damage back to what it was initially at 20. So hit scan is going to be doing a lot more damage moving forward, both with McCree and Soldier. All right, well, next up, there's been this has been one that you and I have kind of been like, well, this mostly just impacts the lower skill tiers, and that is Reaper. So Reaper, they looked at his passive heal-in that he receives from dealing damage, reducing it from 50% now down to 40% of the damage that he deals. And I feel like this is definitely something that is catered towards silver and gold, primarily. Just because we are seeing a lot more Reaper played there. Anywhere else probably isn't going to have as big of an impact, but it does mean maybe a Reaper just can't walk in at that tier level and just not die,
Yeah, I mean, this is nothing to do, as Linkser can attest to. Reaper does not need a nerf because he's generally crap in the Overwatch League, especially in this meta, but in everything in where we play and in the ladder and comp, Reaper was pretty overpowered. You basically just couldn't die. Like if you were competent at all on Reaper, you just couldn't die. So hopefully this change, I don't know if it's enough of a change to make him, because 50 to 40, it seems like a lot. But if you go from not being able to die to, all right, I'm 10% less likely to die, does that really make that much of a difference? But we'll see. I mean, they may have to make some more changes. It's just Reaper's another one of those characters that it's kind of like Soldier. It's not basic kit, but their kit does not go well with the power creep that we're seeing in the Overwatch. Because everyone else is getting pumped up, but Reaper and Soldier's kits can't be pumped up. Truly, like, I mean, what could you do to Reaper to make him meta? Like, he's a close range character.
You give him 12 more shotguns.
Yeah, be like, you have 40 shotguns that have no fall off.
Yeah, like it's okay. So, like, I'm sure you've seen this GIF on Twitter or on Giphy or whatever, where it has like the noodle-armed Reaper who's like just like flailing his arms, firing. It needs to be like that.
Like wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man. I just lost totem because I don't know. I would highly recommend coming back and watching the VOD of this and just seeing me flail my arms back around.
Yeah, it's a little bit past the 2-hour mark, guys. Actually, hold on. Don't we have a command now? Oh, we do 2 hours and like a minute and a half, guys. To go check out the VOD.
I mean, the thing is, it's a special episode. We're allowed to go over 2 hours. Mainly, I'm allowed to talk much longer than the 2 hours. And despite what Bob says on OWL by the numbers in his 20 to 30 minute episode with Ednar not there.
That did not happen.
Shut it, Bob. You went over an hour. So, yeah, it would have been like an hour 40 with me, but it would still then go 20 to 30 minutes.
We were so close to making the hour cutoff, but not quite.
Nope,
but anyways, we got 2 more characters that we need to get through on top of the new changes as of today. So next up, we have a change to Zarya. So another key component in the 3-3 composition. And this is taking a look at her particle cannon alternate fire. So the explosion radius was reduced from 2 meters to 3 meters, now to 1 to 2 meters, dependent on your energy level. Okay, Ed, so we'll use the Overwatch League as a primary example for this, because we see a very distinct difference in the way that some of these DPS players are playing Zarya. So, for instance, you brought Sinatra's damage up earlier today as, one of the top Zaryas, or really DPS in the league. And Sinatra tends to rely a lot on building his Graviton Surges off of using that alternate fire. More times than not, he's like doing it on high ground and just landing that splash damage. What this change is going to mean is there's just not going to be as much splash damage coming in because that explosion is going to be a smaller radius. So it's not going to see the same amount of ultimate gain that it was getting prior. So it's definitely a nerf in that regard. So maybe you're not going to be relying more so on your alternate fire, and it will have you relying a little bit more on your like mechanical tracking when it comes to using the beam damage with the left click.
Yeah, and I mean, all right, I'm not going to get too much into this because there was also a change to this on the other patch notes. So I'll dive into Zarya when we go over that. We'll go over this next change to the next hero, and then I'll dive into Zarya when we go over the next patch notes.
Okay. All right. Well, last but not least, to me, this one impacts probably the most, just because of the way that this ability actually works. But I'll talk about Discord Orb last. But they did look at Zenyatta's orb, so his orb obstruction damage was increased from 46 to 48, so minor note there. But they also looked at Orb of Discord, and that effect was reduced from 30% to 25%, and that is massive. I mean, Zenyatta, it's no secret that Zenyatta does a lot of DPS. He also increases the overall amount of damage that is done just due to the way that Orb of Discord works. So this is essentially a nerf to literally everyone.
It really is. Honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, you know who this won't truly affect? JJoNak. Like, as odd as that sounds, like, that was my first thought, because I'm like, he's not throwing out Orb of Discord and focusing them down. He's just the best at right-clicking and getting headshots or getting people around corners, where Orb of Discord is not effective. So JJoNak won't truly change at all. The team around him might change, but he won't truly change at all, I don't think. So yeah, this is a massive change for Zenyatta. Like, if anything, the Orb of Destruction, they buffed the personal damage of Zenyatta to make up for the Orb of Discord nerf. But, you can't buff one hero because of a nerf to everyone else. Like, that's the math doesn't work. Buff one because the other 29 got nerfed. That's Houston Outlaw math. But it's great. I don't think this makes Zenyatta unplayable or out of the meta right now, or in stage 2. But this definitely, with the lack of actual damage, because goats, you're not pumping out a lot of damage in goats.
Unless there's Zarya.
Unless you're Zarya, but you're not truly melting people left and right in goats. That's why the fights last forever. You relied on Orb of Discord to help facilitate burning certain people down. Well, if you have to burn them down slower, that allows them to get healed up quicker. That allows the everything to just last longer, which is just going to make goats that much more ineffective. So yeah, this is a massive change. As much as everyone loves playing Zenyatta and loves seeing Zenyatta crazy plays, it's much needed, I think.
Yeah, and I will say too, we had the longest stretch of time where they were making support changes, and Zenyatta was never on the balance change list. So this is definitely something that has been long overdue. And at this point, it's safe to say, they've definitely targeted almost every aspect of the 3-3 composition to try to make it where it's still not going to be the most prevalent meta in the game. And honestly, guys, with the amount of heroes that have been tweaked with this, balance update with the PTR, honestly, I have no idea what the meta is going to be. A lot of us are kind of speculating that it might be more bunker compositions with Baptiste in there. But it's interesting. Last week, we were okay, their answer to nerfing 3-3 was just going to be to buff everything else. And then, lo and behold, they make another wave of changes that directly impacts the 3-3. And now we have to reevaluate everything more than we were already doing prior. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to say, for all of the people that have been complaining about the meta, which, again, always happens regardless of what meta it has been, this is probably going to be, one of the first times in the span of the game where I legit do not know the direction that the meta is going to shift in. Just because of how drastic of a wave of changes it was, because we've never had an instance where they've touched more than 2/3 of the roster.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know where it's going to go, but like, I have a sneaky suspicion on certain characters that are going to get a lot more playtime. I think Doomfist is going to be one of those characters. I don't know. Did you have a chance to see Jane? His pro scrims on the PTR?
I did not. All I heard about it was the usage of Square for callouts.
Yes. One thing that stood out to me is the Doomfist play. A lot of it was Blase, who me and you have been very high on from his days in Contenders.
Well, it was more so you. I wasn't as convinced.
Right,
so
whatever. You know what? Whatever. But even Jane was saying, like, Blase popped off on Doomfist. Like, Doomfist is one of those characters where I think they buffed him a tad too much. And it's going to be taken advantage of. So I think we're going to get more of a new age dive. As weird as it sounds, I think you're going to get like a bunker dive situation where you're going to have those characters who can get in, get out super quick without needing support. Like, you're talking your Diva, your Doomfist are going to be the ones that go straight in there. But then you have the bunker with Orisa, maybe a Torbjorn, maybe a Bastion. And then you have your supports of probably Anna. I mean, I really like Anna or Moira. Sorry, Moira and Baptiste. Like, having that duo of, AoE healing, damage output, invulnerability. I think that would really be nice. But like you said, we just have no idea what the new meta is going to be. But yeah. Yep, we'll see what happens, and we won't know what the meta will be until Stage 2, Week 1 on that Thursday. Like, we'll have a rough idea, but we just won't know for sure.
And I'm sure, once again, we could just throw our power rankings out the window. Because who knows what's going to happen.
Probably. I mean, same with Fantasy. Like, the Fantasy, like, who knows? Main supports and main tanks might be like, we need all the main supports and main tanks we can get our hands on. Because we don't know who's going to be meta, who's going to be switching to. If Baptiste is in the meta, is it going to be the flex support that's switching over? Is it going to be the main support that's flipping over to them? Who's going to be, doing what? Who's going to be doing the flipping? Who's going to be back in? Like, it's going to be such a chaotic time.
And not only that, too, like, you have to think Baptiste is a hit scan hero. So there is a potential that a DPS player could be playing Baptiste, or, I could definitely see the flex support being the one, because that also is true. But, like, how many flex supports are prevalent in hit scan DPS outside of, like, I mean, technically Harry Hook is a main support, so I can't even say him.
Yeah. But I mean,
Kareev would definitely be someone that came to mind, but
yeah, I mean, you could see it. Like, you're even seeing it a little bit in Stage 1. Now, granted, not a lot, but you're seeing some of these DPS players playing Anna. Like, I know what Linkser did. I think Agilities did too.
Yeah, Architect
did. Like, they switched over to Anna because it's a hit scan hero. Who also heals. So maybe that's what they do. Maybe they run some sort of a new form of goats, or a triple support, single tank 2 DPS type of meta. Like, we just don't know. So it'll be nice.
Well, what we do know, Ed, is the fact that we had more PTR changes today that dropped earlier this afternoon. It also included all the Baptiste cosmetics that you can take a look at, as we noted earlier today. So, again, we got a couple of changes for Baptiste. One of them is a visual one, so I know they made some significant changes to Immortality Field for that visual. Same with the sounds. And then he also made a change to his Biotic Launcher, where you can now stop it from auto-reloading by switching the auto-reload option to off, because, default, that is on. Now, Junkrat, we noted earlier, and this is the change that they made after the first wave of changes to Junkrat. So the Junkrat frag launcher impact damage went from 60, which was the initial buff, down to 50. So basically, compared to live, it's seen an increase of 10, as opposed to 20 at this point. And then it also increased the cost of Riptire by 10%.
I think this is a nice trade-off. I don't think before this change, Junkrat was overpowered. If you played him on the meta and on the PTR or saw him on the PTR, Junkrat was pretty ridiculous. I think these two changes put him slightly better than what he was at before any changes. You said, his impact changed from 40 to 50 essentially instead of 40 to 60. And then to make up for that, they nerfed how quickly he gets his ultimate. So that's yes, they're going to give you more direct impact damage, but you're not going to get your ultimate as much. And the ultimate is what really is very powerful about Junkrat, is his ultimate. So I think this puts him slightly above where he was at before, but he's still super strong on defense on a lot of maps. And I still see him regardless of what the new meta is. First off, the impact damage he's much more of a shield breaker now. Because direct damage, you can hit somebody direct damage, but it's much easier to hit a Reinhardt shield than it is to hit, a Lucio. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But he's really going to be strong on defense, I think. Less so on offense, but he's going to be real good on defense. So maybe Jake isn't irrelevant after all. When everyone was talking about, hey, Junkrat changes, we're going to see the rise of Jake. I love Jake's Junkrat. He's not the best Junkrat in the league. If Junkrat becomes very popular, honestly, it affects Libero the most. Because Libero was probably the best Junkrat I saw in Season 1 over Jake. So, fantasy, spoiler, I'm trying to get Libero in my leagues. So if you're in fantasy, it's not unheard of to take a flyer and try and get Libero from people on your team if Junkrat's there. Because if Junkrat's there, Libero is going to do pretty darn good things on an amazing team. So there you go. I wanted to say that last night, but I wasn't on the OWO by the numbers. So sad.
All right, well, we do have an additional change to Zarya, which you were waiting to hold off on your judgment until this. So again, this is looking at her particle cannon and the alt fire explosion radius, where the radius change is at 2 meters, but now it's at 2 meters regardless of what the energy level is. So they kind of did without depending on what your energy level is. So it's always going to be at 2. So it's essentially not increasing to that extra meter like it was prior with that last Wednesday update. So now that we've gone through all of the changes with Zarya, what are you thinking of her alt fire change here?
I really like the alt fire change. So when it said previously that it was going to switch from 1 to 2 meters, depending on energy level, it's like, okay, well, a lot of times in the meta, you're going to see a majority of the times closer to 2 than 1. Just because they're so good at building up that energy level. If you put it at 2, just directly at 2, it's a massive nerf. So I guess I can compare it to this. In the pro scene, they were closer to 3 meters because they always had generally a high, above 50% average energy. A lot of the time they did. Well, think of it this way. 2 was closer to, let's say, 60% average energy. Let's just say that's what it was. 2 is closer to 60% of between 1 and 2 than it is between 2 and 3. So overall, this is a net massive nerf. Because, like, let's say it's at a 1.6 meters with like what they're averaging with the previous nerf. Well, okay, 1.6, whatever. Before it was at a 2.6. Well, there's a difference of 0.4 meters, or 0.2 meters, which doesn't seem like a big difference to us, but it's a big difference to them. And basically making it if you compare it to the Overwatch League season that's presently going on, imagine the only time they're allowed to right-click is when they have 0 energy. And that is what you're getting. You're getting 0 energy Zarya right-clicks. Like, that is a massive nerf to the right-clicks. You're getting bronze level right-clicks in the Overwatch League once this comes out. So this is a massive nerf. I think it was a good decision. They could have done something about her left click, but I think the majority of the time, people were just spamming right click to build up energy so they could melt down when they have 80 to 90% energy. Like, that's what they were building towards. They were building those right clicks to get up to 80, 90% energy to melt people's faces. Well, if they're building energy up less because there's less of a radius of damage, then, it's going to be different. Now, this alone couldn't change GOATs. Like, if Zarya was massive, but it was the dive meta, this change would mean nothing. Because you don't have clumped up groups in, like, a dive meta. Like, so the 2 to 3 meters is not going to change anything because everyone's kind of spread out in a dive meta. Like, you have a Widowmaker over here, you have the healers in back, you have, and so on and so forth. But since everybody's grouped up in GOATs, this is another change directly targeted towards GOATs, where your team is clumped up together and you can do the most damage. So it's a good change that does not affect where we're at, like gold, platinum, diamond, master, all those things. It doesn't affect truly that at all. It affects the GOATs at the Overwatch League level.
Yeah, I quickly want to note you were talking about energy gain, and that's completely tied to barriers, not so much the right click, but it does directly impact the ultimate charge. So just note that. But anyways, guys, this is a slew of changes on the PTR. Really groundbreaking stuff. So definitely hop on the PTR, check the stuff out. And who knows, maybe with the Junkrat change, after the change, this is a sign that maybe everything's just not going to get patched straight from the PTR over to live. Fingers crossed. Maybe the PTR will actually see more use if the feedback that they're getting is actually used, so to speak. But with that being said, Ed, I know we're nearing 2.5 hours, so let's go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. We're always looking for insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for you. And just a quick update on our Overwatch network. We are adding another podcast. So, recently we added OWL by the Numbers, which Ed and I are both on. That is our Fantasy Overwatch League podcast. And we will be having a new Overwatch Contenders podcast. This is something that I was alluding to earlier. So this is going to be our 5th podcast on our network. And this is going to mark the return of regular Contenders coverage since July 2018, when Ren and myself were doing the back cap, which we had on the Overwatch League Network RSS feed. So look for Hack the Planet in Overwatch Contenders podcast on podcatchers soon. I do know, I'm pretty sure they were uploading the video to our Google Drive this evening. So hopefully by the time we wrap up, it'll be up there and I can post it on YouTube. And then I could start submitting it to Libsyn, get it on the podcatchers, and then it could be available here within the next couple of days, maybe. I mean, the time frame that it takes to get on the podcatchers drastically shifts every time I've done it. But I'm looking forward to just having additional coverage on the network. So this is going to cover like NA, EU, Korea, China, and doing like deep dives, contenders news, player standouts, things like that. And it'll be hosted by some of our friends over at the Broverwatch who do a lot of their esports write-in. So we'll have Sayarnak, Ryu, and Traydan. So stay tuned for that. And we do have a Twitter set up for it, so you can follow Hack the Planet at HTP_podcast. So stay tuned for that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they are going to bring to the table for our network. And we hope you guys give them a chance, whether it's, checking out the YouTube or just the iTunes or podcatcher feed. But guys, if you're looking for additional content, you can always check out Overwatch Recall. So that is our listen of Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League podcast on our website. And of course, every Sunday night, I release the episodic listings for the past week. And last week, we had 31 podcasts release a new episode. It's crazy. Like, it keeps growing since the Overwatch League came back. And it's weird seeing, we went from, 18 to, 30 a week now.
I remember when it was, 4. It was you, the Cavalry. I had a real crappy one. And then Garrett Weinzerl and Patrick Beja. I forgot the name of theirs. They had one.
Yeah, Overwatchers.
And I think that was it, but that was back in the beta. So there weren't a lot of podcasts for it back then. So to see it at 31 in a week is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do quickly want to note, Reinforce actually started a podcast here. I think it was within the last week or two. I highly recommend it. If you follow him on Twitter, I know he has a link to it. Definitely check it out. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
But outside of that, if you guys want to show additional support to our podcast network and help it grow, we do have a Patreon. And you can find that at patreon.com/OWL network. And for just $1 a month, you can help keep the lights on. And of course, help bring additional content to our network.
Get us on CBS Live.
Yes, get us on CBS.
I mean, it doesn't have to be
ABC,
CBS.
Whatever.
I'd be fine with ABC, even NBC. I don't know about Fox, but CBS would be the preferred destination.
Absolutely. So tiers start at just $1 a month, going all the way up to $10. So any additional support, guys, is greatly appreciated. And I do want to thank Daniel Fago on becoming the latest pledger for our Patreon. So thank you so much for your continued support. We greatly appreciate it. But Ed, with that being said, we have a number of different ways how our listeners and viewers can get a hold of us. So why don't you let them know how they can do that?
All right. Well, first off, I want to start off. Has anyone else noticed that Totem has started to read off the Patreon website after I screwed it up so many times in a row? I mean, it's justifiable. I'm just throwing it out there. But you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We do have a website, and that is owlnshow.com. We are on YouTube, so that's youtube.com/c/Overwatch League Network, where we have everything from our weekly Overwatch rankings to all our live podcasts to any kind of random video Spider decides to come up with that week. So go check that out and subscribe there. We are on Discord, discord.me/OWLN show. So come over there, ask us any questions that you might have. We are streaming presently on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We're our Twitch affiliate, so come help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. We do stream fairly regularly. So Overwatch League Network airs Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. OWL by the Numbers, our fantasy podcast, airs at Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. This show, Heroes Never Die, airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams generally don't happen during the Overwatch League season. I think Spider was on last Friday. He streamed some Baptiste play, but generally we're just watching the Overwatch League. So, and then, like Totem said, we do have our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. So come check that out if you can support us. That would be amazing. You can contact me personally on Twitter at Edanar. That's EDANAR, Overwatch. So come follow me over there. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I am over on Twitter at TonallyDrunkCTR. And I do quickly want to note that yesterday morning, I actually guested on OWL Recap with Blaze and Bob, and I Play Games. So be sure to check that one out. I know it's already up on the feeds. It's on their YouTube, all that good stuff. And I do want to say, if you do not subscribe to OWL Recap on YouTube, please go help them out. They are so close to getting 100 subscribers, and they have really been focusing on video content, specifically player interviews, since they are more hands-on at the Blizzard Arena this season, because I know their new host has been primarily focusing on that for them, which is awesome. Yep. So I know they're probably going to hit it if they haven't already at some point this week, but it's definitely worth checking out, and I know how much work they've been putting into it. And of course, we're good friends with all of them on that show, so even more reason to go show them some love and support. But with that being said, again, guys, this is episode 150. Next week is actually this podcast's 3-year anniversary. I am going to plan on doing some sort of giveaway, which I'll probably post about at some point later in the week, which we'll probably have running until the actual anniversary date, which falls either next Thursday or Friday. So stay tuned for that. No.
No? Dang it!
No.
Never eligible for these things.
See, maybe if you didn't put up so many strong performances in Fantasy Overwatch League since we started, then I would reconsider.
I mean,
hey, who knows? Who knows, Ed? That might change this week because we do have a match
between my 3 leagues. I have 1 loss in the entire year, and the 1 loss is on my team I share with Bob.
Yeah, and he's the pitfall.
I mean, if you're looking at the record, 3-0 in the other 2 leagues, 2-1 in the one I share with Bob. I call that domination. I'm basically the Patriots of fantasy Overwatch. So, just throwing it out there.
Well, I mean, I guess you better hope that, Bob just gets in trouble for going to certain massage parlors, and then he gets demoted, and then you can just take over the reins, so to speak.
Bob, you got busted for going to a certain massage parlor. I'm going to be taking over as sole owner of the team. No, that team actually is doing good, and I think we're set up well on that team for next stage. So, be prepared. Domination.
Absolutely. But with that being said, guys, I know it's been a long one tonight, as per usual, but we're going to go ahead and close things out. So thank you so much for tuning in again for another edition of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode 150. I am your host, Emily Drunk, joined, as per usual, at least for, 50 episodes at this point, with my co-host, Edanar. And we will see you guys back Monday night for our next episode of Overwatch League Network. Have a good night.
Have a good one.